Well, class, let's all turn to page 37. As you can see here, we're going to be talking about introductions. Now, the first thing about an introduction, I think, is to always have one. Even if you have a short presentation, 5 minutes or so, you can still have a 20 or 30-second introduction. And why? What's the purpose of the introduction? Well, first of all, it's to get people's attention, get them to focus on you. Secondly, it's to establish some sense of rapport, so they can hear your voice, see the expressions on your face, and sort of get to know you just a little bit. And finally, of course, is to take the people from wherever they are into your subject matter. So this is the purpose of an introduction, and why we always have to have one in a presentation. Now, let me ask you this question. Suppose you were in an audience, and a speaker was about to come out, and the introducer gets on the stage and begins to introduce the speaker. What would you like to have in that introduction? What do you think should be in an introduction? Anybody? Yes?
Credentials?
The credentials, academic credentials, or even experiential kinds of things like, this should be something that supports that person's right to be here and talk to us. So some kind of credentials. Anybody else? What else would you like to see included? Yes, sir?
How about a topic? What are you going to be talking about?
The topic, of course, yeah. Let's not forget to be so clever as to forget to tell people what it is we're going to be talking about. Of course, the topic. Anything else you'd like to see? Yes, Elaine?
I'd like to know about the person who's introducing the speaker.
You would?
I would.
Really?
Yes.
Huh. Okay, we'll have to think about that. We don't want to spend too much time on the introducer, but anyway. What else? Yes, Jim?
Educational background.
Yeah, especially educational background, especially as it's relevant to the topic. This person has spent time academically learning about this or that. Anything else?
I would say their name. Maybe you covered that, but I think their name.
Oh, the name of the speaker,
Yes.
Of course, yeah. Who is this? Exactly right. Of course, they have to know who it is. So, this is what we're going to be looking at an introduction, and I promise you that later on, I will give an example of an introduction. All right? So, let's begin. Suppose you are the person who's going to be introduced. What do? First of all, you write your own introduction, because you want the introducer to say about you what you want, not about what they want. Now, once they get up in front of an audience, that's it. They can say whatever they want. But hopefully, if you've written an introduction, they'll follow it. Now, I think it's important to send it ahead of time. And if you can't do that via email or phone or whatever, when you get to the place where you're speaking, you've got to find that introducer, have a copy, a hard copy of your introduction, and have them read it over and also read it out loud a couple of times. This is so they can give it smoothly and they're not going to stumble through that introduction. And it does them a favor. Actually, you see a big sigh of relief when they say, here's my introduction. They go, oh, thank you. So you're going to have that introduction saying what you want to say. Now, once you have begun, it's important to thank the introducer. Maybe not immediately, but in the next couple of minutes, because they usually come from the audience. And so as you thank the introducer, the audience feels like you're thanking them as well. And they like that. They like that a lot. Now, how about the situation where you have to introduce yourself? This happens to me quite often. Nobody's there to introduce me, so I have to introduce myself. It's a different story when you have to introduce yourself. You don't want to do it all up front. It's just so boring. I mean, imagine watching somebody get up there and say, hello, my name is John Schmidt, and I was born on a rainy day in Chicago in 1948, and I went to this school and graduated, and I went to that school, and then I got this job and started a family, and then I went to work for the government, and unfortunately they sent me into the military where I didn't learn very much about anything, and then I did this, and boring! Don't do that. When you have to introduce yourself, what you do is get into your topic first, all right? With an anecdote, with a statistic, with a quote of some kind. You get into your topic first, and as you go along in your presentation, you drop little snippets about who you are. By way of example, as you're giving examples and stories, you're also letting the audience know about you. For example, I can just throw out quickly and say, when I was traveling to South Africa, I experienced this really great customer service when I got there. Or I had a terrible time when I was in the Army and I went someplace and they didn't have my billets ready for me. And so they're learning about me as I'm using those examples to exemplify what it is I'm talking about. So they're learning about me as well. Sometimes my students are very surprised when after a couple of hours of speaking to them, I say, okay, stop. What do you know about me? They say, well, you were in the Army, and you were a speech therapist, and you lived in Chicago. They know all kinds of things, but I never stopped to tell them all of that. I just dropped those little tidbits on. That's professional stuff. That's the way to do that. when you're introducing yourself. Now, whether you're introducing yourself or introducing somebody else, you must keep it upbeat, okay? Positive. You don't ever want to walk in front of an audience and say, boy, did I have a tough time getting here. Not only was the plane late, but the traffic was terrible. I still couldn't sleep last night because the bed was lousy. And you know, I'm kind of sick, my stomach this morning, and I have a headache too, and I really lost my nose. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Don't do that to the audience. You don't want to appeal to their pity, you know what I mean? So just go on through. Don't dump any negativity on it. Except when I'm talking about customer service, if that's the topic, and I happen to experience either really good or poor customer service in the last day or two, well, I'll bring that up in the course of my seminar, because it's real stuff happening. It's not just negative dumping on people. So, a good way to introduce yourself, to be positive. Now, suppose you're introducing somebody else. Well, this is a situation that I think you should look at as a mini speech, a mini presentation. And it's all about the other person, it's not about you, all right? And so, again, you want to be positive, and let's back it up. Meet with that speaker somehow, get their written introduction. If you can't, interview them on the phone. If you can't do that, when they come to do the presentation, have a little interview off on the side and take a few notes about their credentials, their name and how to pronounce it, the title of their topic, just like all those things you told me, so that you can get up and give a very nice introduction to them. Now, you might have to edit it. I got to tell you, I was at a conference in San Francisco introducing Paul Garfield. Now, at the time, he was quite a popular speaker, and he'd written a book, and and I was going to be introducing him. Big group of people. So I called him ahead of time, said, sure, I'll send you my introduction. 3 typewritten pages, single-spaced. It was his bio. Is he out of his mind? If I had done that, it would have used half of his time. So I had to take that, just kind of eke out a few things here and there and make my own introduction. So beware, you might have to do some editing. But do it enthusiastically in terms of introducing somebody else. Imagine sort of a speaker who is going to be introduced. And I'd like to put all of these things together in an example for you. And you can do it your own way. There's no perfect way to do this. But I just want you to see what this could look like. All right? So I'm about to introduce another person. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Roger Burgraff, and it is my pleasure tonight to introduce our speaker for the evening. She comes to us from Washington, D.C., and she's on the President's Panel of Economic and Urban Development. And she has written a book on that topic, which was published by Doubleday last year. She's here to talk about infrastructure in large urban environments. And while she's here, she told me she'd like to see some California scenery, and also she has an interview with Mayor Villaraigosa in Los Angeles tomorrow. So, without any other introduction, let me introduce and ask you to give a warm California welcome to Dr. Jane Schmitz. Great. Good class. Let's take a short break.